संसारदावानललिढलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य घना घना त्वं
संसारदावानललिढलोका त्राणाय कारुण्य घना घना
प्राप्तस्य कल्याणा गुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याणा गुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
महाप्रभु कीर्तना नृत्य गीता वादित्रमाध्यान् मनसोरसेना
महाप्रभु कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वादित्रमाध्यान् मनसोरसेना
रोमाञ्चकं पश्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
रोमाञ्चकं
पश्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे
गुरो
श्रीचरणारविन्दा श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमार्जनादो श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतान्मन्दिरमार्जनादो उक्तस्य भक्तां च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा भक्तां नियुञ्जतोऽपि
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो साद्वन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा
चतुर्विधा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो सात्वन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा
कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
श्रीराधिका
माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना प्रतीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य
वन्दे गुरो
श्रीचरणारविन्दा निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकिलिसिद्धै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया जयुनो रतिकिलिसिद्धै यायालिभिर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्राति दाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् दाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य चरणारविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यते यत एव सद्भिः
साक्षादरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा
यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोर्यः प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम् अधोर्यः प्रिय एव तस्य गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् नगति कुतोऽपि प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् नगति कुतोऽपि ध्यायान्स्तु वांस्तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्या वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा वांस्तस्य यशस्त्रिसन्ध्या
वन्दे
गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति नामिने ॐ विष्णुपदाय
कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिति
नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा द्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे हरे
राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna
Hare Ram
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Jaya Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shah Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shah Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Jai Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shah Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Jai Radhe Jai Jai Shah Jai Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Shri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Shri Krishna Bolo Jai Radhe Radhe कृष्ण बोलो जय राधे, श्री राधे जय राधे, जय श्री कृष्ण बोलो जय राधे, श्री राधे जय राधे, जय श्री कृष्ण बोलो जय राधे। कृष्ण बलराम कृष्ण बलराम, कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम, बलराम कृष्ण बलराम, कृष्ण बलराम जय बलराम, जय जगन्नाथा जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रमा जय सुदर्शन चक्र, जय जगन्नाथा जय बलदेवा जय सुभद्रमा जय सुदर्शन चक्र, जय सीताराम जय सीताराम, सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान, सीताराम सीताराम, सीताराम जय लक्ष्मण हनुमान, जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह, लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह, निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल, निताय गौर हरि बोल गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल, निताय गौर हरि बोल, जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद, जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद, जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव।
जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रवाचकाचार्य अस्तुतर सरस्वती श्रीमद इस्कॉन प्रतिष्ठा विभूति संस्थापकाचार्य वैष्णव शिरोमणि गौर प्रियजन कृष्ण प्रेम भक्ति दत्त पतित पावन हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद जी की जय, श्री गौरी गुरु वर्ग पतितुदार की जय, श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भक्त दास संकुल सतगोस्वामी प्रभु की जय, नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय, परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय, जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तनेक जनाक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरांग चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावृनय अवतार की जय, गोलोकेर प्रमदान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जगह की जय, जोग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय, प्रियदांग ट्रांसडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय, श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गुप्त राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय, श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुराधाम की जय, जय लॉर्डशिप श्री राधा नील माधव की जय, श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्रधाम की जय, परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय, श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय, भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशना कर सिंहरे भगवान की जय, जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय, बोलो श्री मथुरा रानी की जय, समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय, निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे हरि बोल, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories, glories to Shri Guru Shri Guru. Namaste Narasingaya Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Ine. Pralada Lada Ine. Hiranyakashipurvaksha. Hiranyakashipurvaksha. Silatankanakalaya. Jaya Silatankanakalaya. Ito Nisingo Karato Nisinga. Jato Jato Jamita to Nisinga. Bahire Nisingo Hrudaye Nisinga. Narasingha Madhimi Sharanam Prapade. Tabakara Kamala Bade Nakam Adabhuta Singha. Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanabringa. Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Tavakara Kamala Bari. Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Kesavadruta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Kesavadruta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Re. Jai Jagadisha Re. Jayo Nishingade, Jayo Nishingade, Nishingade, Jayo Nishingade. Jayo Narahari, Jayo Narahari, Narahari, Jayo Narahari. Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Prahlad Maharaj, Bhakta Prahlad, Srila Prahlad Maharaj. Nittai Gora Haribo, 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 Nittai Gora Haribo. जय श्री श्री भक्त पद सर्विघ्न विनाशन कृष्ण हरे भगवान की जय। जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की। निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवे सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवे सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी बाई प्रियायै केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रदे देवे सत्यवताय नमो नमः। बोलो श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो हे अभिलाषी।
जे तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वंश पूर्ण हो।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंश पूर्ण।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी।
तुम्हें कृपा करी करा तारे वृंदावन वासी।
मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास।
मोरा ये विलास कुंज दियो वास।
नयने हरिबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी।
हमें नयने हरिबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी।
ये निवेदन दारो सखीर अनुग्रह
koro.
Vedam nadhara sakirayano gatakara
Sevadikara diye koro nijadasi.
Sevayadikara diye koro nijadasi.
Dina Krishna dase ko ye namora hoy.
Dina Krishna das ko namora.
Shri Radha Govinda preme sada ye nabasi.
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 Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo Namaha
Tulasi Krishna Preyasi. Namo Namaha.
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade.
Jani kani sapapani Brahma kadikani sa Tani tani pranasanti Pradakshina pade pade.
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade.
Jani kani sapapani Brahma hatari kanisa Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade.
Yani kani cha papani Brahma hatyadikani cha Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade.
Jani kani sapapani Brahma hatari kanisa Tani tani pranashanti Pradakshina pade pade.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Haribol
Hari Bol
Haribol
Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Shri Vrindayai Tulasi Vai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satya Bhattai Namo Namo Vrindayai Tulasi Vai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satya Bhattai Namo Namo Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Shattavatai Namo Namaha Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him and make him resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure grove. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavitams of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna praise. May I always stream in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person by the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even not for understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Ananta Kuti Vaishnavrindi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanam Janam Bhavamahada Vagni Nirvapanam Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paravijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmarane Nakala Etadrushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaivam Idrishamiya Janina Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Bhaja Karishaka Maye Mama Janmane Janmaneshwari Bhata Bhakti Raitu Kitvaye Oinandatanu Jakinkaram Patitamam Visame Bhavambudho Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stita Dhuli Sadrisam Vichintaya Nayanam Galora Shrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadarudaya Gira Purakai Nichitam Papukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisyati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravusaitam Sunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virayena Me Aslishava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshanar Marmahatam Karotuva Jatatatava Vidadhatulam Pato Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Namo Mahavranaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Tvishinama Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunavadi Patsatyari Satarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart with the dust accumulated by your conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it sprays the rays, the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which you're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more torn than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion and service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on the undivided citation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world, your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so, even if handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. No Guru Vandan?
What?
Guru Vandan, no?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sri Guru Vandan, Mangala Aarti ki jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakadivitam Sha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Namine Shivarsavana Videvi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Viruddha Papa-siddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Guru Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Guru Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Virbhava Bhumistvam Yadesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Tuse Namaha Panchatatvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Jayatam Suratur Bangur Mama Manda Matir Gati Matsarva Swapadambujo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpatramadaha Shimad Ratnagada Simasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevimanus Marami Shiman Rasa Rasaram Vivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinata Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Harshvasi Gaur Bhakti Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. So we're continuing with our special lectures, which are more like targeted to understanding how to purify society and establish Krishna consciousness in the modern world. So, today we're going to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 17th chapter, 38th verse. Sutta uvacha abhyartitas tada tasmai stanani kalaye dado dutam panam striyasuna yatra dharmas chaturvida. Sutta Goswami said, Maharaj Parikshit, thus being petitioned by the personality of Kali, gave him permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter were performed. So this is an explanation of how the Kali Yuga became contaminated, and it's still going on today. And this is like the onslaught of illusion and misery in this age of Kali Yuga started very quickly after the disappearance of Krishna and the ascendance of Maharaj Parikshit as king of the entire Kura dynasty kingdom, which included the whole earth at that time. Okay.
So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Grantaraj Ki Jai, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 1, I'm sorry, first canto, chapter 17, verse 38. So it says, in the purport, the basic principles of irreligiosity, such as pride, prostitution, intoxication, and falsehood, counteract the four principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. The personality of Kali, this is not Kali Mata, this is a man. His name is Kali, and he's the personality of corruption in the modern world. The personality of Kali was given permission to live in four places particularly mentioned by the king. That's King Parikshit, namely the place of gambling, the place of prostitution, the place of drinking, and the place of animal slaughter. Srila Jiva Goswami directs that drinking against the principles of scriptures, such as Sotramani Yagya, association with women outside marriage, and killing animals against the injunctions of scriptures are irreligious. In the Vedas, two different types of injunctions are there for the pavritas, or those who are engaged in material enjoyment, and for the nivritas, or those who are liberated from material bondage. The Vedic injunction for the pavritas is to gradually regulate their activities toward the path of liberation. Therefore, for those who are in the lowest stage of ignorance and who indulge in wine, women, and flesh, drinking by performing the Sotramani Yagya, association of women by marriage, and flesh eating by sacrifices are sometimes recommended. Such recommendations in the Vedic literature are meant for a particular class of men and not for all, but because they are injunctions of the Vedas for particular types of persons, such activities by the pavritas are not considered adharma. One man's food may be poison for others. Similarly, what is recommended for those in the mode of ignorance may be poison for those in the mode of goodness. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu therefore affirms that recommendations in the scriptures for a certain class of men are never to be considered adharma or irreligious, but such activities are factually adharma, and they are never to be encouraged. The recommendations in the scriptures are not meant for the encouragement of such adharma, but for regulating the necessary adharma gradually toward the path of dharma. Okay, now this is very, very interesting points that Prabhupada is making here. And he's giving scriptural evidence of genuine acharyas like Sri Jiva Goswami. And at the same time, he's explaining things that are in the Vedas but are bewildering to many people, especially what's called the Sotramani Yagya. What is the Sotramani Yagya? It's actually meant for Lord Indra, who is called the Sotraman. It is a Vedic sacrifice belonging to the Havir Yagna group. Two varieties of this have been recognized as follows. 1. Charaka Sotramani. It is part of Rajasuya Yagya and Kokili Sotramani, an independent rite through sura or wine is ceremoniously purified and offered in it. It is not drunk by priests. Well, okay, so basic Sotramani Yagya is offering wine. Sometimes in different circles. Instead of wine, they offer milk. But the idea is that some people are allowed to take these intoxicants. And it's usually associated with Lord Indra. But it is a Vedic type of yajna recommended for low-class people. And it's whenever there is a ritual performance, even though it's for something that we would consider nonsense, but it's to help really low-class people make gradual advancement by following a method or a type of process that requires a little bit of tapasya. So to sit down and hear the brahmana saying some mantras and trying to purify the wine or whatever it is they're going to offer, and then eventually the yajman or the person who's supporting or paying for the yajna gets to taste the remnant or the, in this case most of the time it's wine. This is only for a specific class of people, really low-class people, but it's to help them gradually make spiritual progress, at least by having a priest sitting down and hearing the mantras, and then if there's some so-called purification that takes place, they get what they want, but through a process of ritualized offerings. So although we should not criticize such yajnas, we should definitely not participate in them, and we should not criticize them as being as adharma, because we mean not dharmic, because these are some things that are recommended for certain classes of people, even though they are adharmic. So you try and understand that. Well, we understand. Just like one man's food could very well be another person's poison. So Prabhupada said there's no river long enough to wash a glass that has had wine in it. Well, that's the truth. Wine is a corrupting thing. By the way, today, if you go to Safeway or any of the big, stores, you'll see huge rows of wine. All kinds of different wine coming from all different parts of the world. So it's become a big thing. Before, Americans didn't really drink wine. It was like a French thing. They would drink beer and whiskey, right, and hard liquor. But little by little, the French taught the Americans also how to drink wine. And now it's a snobbish thing. Oh, I bought this bottle of wine. It cost $3,000. Yeah, there are wines like that. You get a bottle that's 25 years old or 50 years old. You have to pay $3,000 to $5,000, sometimes $10,000 for that one bottle. And then they make all these things up about how it's good for your health, and the French drink it, and because of that they live a long life even though they eat pig. They write all kinds of articles like that. Anyway, you can get anybody to write an article, even scientists to write the scientific studies proving anything. They can mix up words and use big words and speculate this thing and that thing, and support anything, even bad things. Just like they pay people, the coffee companies pay people to write, scientists to write articles showing how coffee is actually good for you, right? So the whole thing is corrupt. Okay, so it says, therefore, for those who are in the lowest stage of ignorance and who indulge in wine, women, and flesh meaning meat, drinking by performing sotramani yagya, association of women by marriage. So, in other words, these are people that are very low class, but they've become convinced to follow some rules and regulations. There are other people who don't follow any rules and regulations. They're the lowest of the lowest. But these are people who are among the lowest of the lowest, but they're willing to follow some rules and regulations. So therefore you have the Sutramani Yagya for people who want to drink wine. And then you have proper marriage for people who want to associate, for men that want to have association with women. And also there are sacrifices recommended for people who want to eat meat. Usually it is, you can only sacrifice one black lamb a month, but you have to do it with the help of a pundit or a brahmana, and you have to say a mantra that today I'm killing you, my dear friend, meaning the lamb, and in the next life you will also kill me. I will be the lamb and you will be killing me. So they have to say that mantra. So the idea is, if you think about what you're saying, eventually you'll say, well, why am I doing this? I'm just putting myself in jeopardy by doing this. So eventually they may become more self-realized and stop it. So that's why there is the ritual and the repetition of that mantra. There are people that, they say the mantra, but it doesn't mean anything for them, so they don't get purified. But the point is, by performing that ceremony, there's a possibility of them restraining themselves, understanding what the consequences are for what they're doing. Okay, so it says, such recommendations in the Vedic literature are meant for a particular class of men and not for all. But because they are injunctions of the Vedas for particular types of persons, such activities by the pavritas are those who are engaged in material enjoyments, are not considered adharma. One man's food may be poison for others. Similarly, what is recommended for those in the mode of ignorance may be poison for those in the mode of goodness. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhu therefore affirms that recommendations in the scriptures for a certain class of men are never to be considered adharma or irreligious, but such activities are factually adharma and they are never to be encouraged. The recommendations in the scriptures are not meant for the encouragement of such adharma, but for regulating the necessary adharma gradually toward the path of dharma. Okay, so now we see that the Vedas are a gigantic tent in which everyone can fit under, even the worst people. And there are pathways for them to be somewhat purified in a gradual process and come to a much higher state of consciousness. And this was, this was the plan of Krishna, to try and help everyone, even the lowest of the low. Right? So then it says, following the footsteps of Maharaj Parikshit, it is the duty of all executive heads of states to see that the principles of religion, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, are established in the state, and that the principles of irreligion, namely pride, illicit female association or prostitution, intoxication, and falsity, are checked by all means. And to make the best use of a bad bargain, the personality Kali may be transferred to places of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and slaughterhouses, if there are any places like that. Those who are addicted to these irreligious habits may be regulated by the injunctions of the scripture. In no circumstances should they be encouraged by any state. In other words, the state should categorically stop all sorts of gambling, drinking, prostitution, and falsity. The state which wants to eradicate corruption by majority may introduce the principles of religion in the following manner. Okay, so when we talk about pride, now pride is related to false ego, right? When you have false ego, you also become falsely proud of achievements, Just like someone will say, well, I went to the casino and I won $50,000. So they're falsely proud of it, right? Of course, gambling is an illicit thing, and there's nothing to be proud about it, but they become falsely proud, and everyone thinks, oh, he won $50,000, like he's a really smart guy, right? Or else someone can start a company and sell products like there's this husband and wife in Canada. They started what's called a drug company in Canada producing not certified drugs, but what you would call non-certified drugs, right? They would have this more or less the same formula as the certified drugs, but it would be much cheaper, right? And so they became multimillionaires, and some of the drugs that they were selling were like opioids. That caused the death of a lot of people, and then they purchased this company from someone who had started it, and then the relatives of that person who started the company sued, and they said that this person cheated their parent, and so forth. So there was a big court case, and eventually the children of the man that started the company, they lost the case. So not so far after that husband and wife, they were like the third or fourth richest people in Canada. They were murdered, right? Mystery. They don't know who did it, but there's definitely people who have a strong motive to do it, because this man and his wife were hated by some people. So here we see, here's a person who's like the third richest man or third richest family in Canada, and they're respected by a lot of people, but also hated by some people, and they were murdered, right? And nobody knows who did it. Now their son, of the father and mother who were murdered, he's offering $35 million to find out who did it and bring them to justice. So now all kinds of crazy people will say, well, I did it. Give me the $35 million, for my family, Now you can put me in jail for 40 years. I don't care, man. I got $35 million. So you see how crazy people are, right? And there's a whole bunch of people who wrote in and says, I'm the guy that killed them, right? And there's about, 20, 30 people like that in Canada that are claiming, I'm the guy, I went and killed them, right? So, it's the whole thing becomes a joke, right? Because now you see that this greed for amassing a huge amount of money leads to a lot of problems, right? Is it really worth it that you made so much money and then you got murdered? What do you think? Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. So you see, it's a very dangerous thing. We should never. Now we're going to hear what are the recommendations by Prabhupada, how to clean up society, how to get rid of all the nonsense in the society. So number 1, 2 compulsory fasting days in a month, if not more austerity, even from the economic point of view. So this is the first recommendation. There should be 2 mandatory fasting days a month. Well, we have them. They're called Ekadasi, right? But he's recommending it in the form of, complete Ekadasi fasting, meaning no eat, no drink for 24 hours. Well, actually, it's usually 36 hours. It starts 6 o'clock at night the day before, and it goes on till 6 o'clock in the morning the day after, right? So it's more than 24 hours. It's like 30 hours, yeah. So that's the normal, and that's what's recommended is for Ekadasi. Now, of course, Lord Chaitanya made it a little simpler. He said, look, don't eat any grains, right? So that's the way we follow it. But You can do Nirjala Ekadasi if you want to. Well, that's what Prabhupada is recommending here. He says 2 compulsory fasting days in a month, if not more austerity. Even from the economic point of view, such 2 fasting days in a month in the state will save tons of food, and the system will also act very favorably on the general health of the citizens. Okay, so that's the first recommendation for cleaning up nonsense in society. Second, there must be compulsory marriage of young boys and girls attaining 24 years of age for the boy and 16 years of age, respectively, for the girl. In other words, he's saying there must be compulsory marriage. Boys that are 24 years old and girl 16 years old, they should get married. You shouldn't let them get older and not be married. So he says, there is no harm in coeducation in the schools and colleges, provided the boys and girls are duly married. And in case there is any intimate connection between a male and female student, they should be married properly without illicit relation. The Divorce Act is encouraging prostitution, and this should be abolished. Whoa. Prabhupada is being really clear here. No divorce allowed. And boys, by the time they're 24, they should know how to earn a living so they can support a family. And the girls should get married. Prabhupada married his wife when she was only 12, and he was like 20 or something. And she had her first baby when she was 14. Right? And they never got divorced. And they had 5 children, and they all were, got married also. When a young girl is more than 16 years old and not married, the parents used to get very, very, let's say, worried. Right. Okay, so now third point. The citizens of the state must give in charity up to 50% of their income for the purpose of creating a spiritual atmosphere in the state or in human society, both individually and collectively. They should preach the principles of Bhagavatam by a karma yoga or doing everything for. They should preach the principles of Bhagavatam by 1, karma yoga or doing everything for the satisfaction of Lord Krishna. 2, regularly hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam from authorized persons or realized souls. 3, chanting of the glories of the Lord congregationally at home or at places of worship. 4, rendering all kinds of service to Bhagavatas, meaning pure devotees engaged in preaching Srimad Bhagavatam. And 5, residing in a place where the atmosphere is saturated with God consciousness. If the state is regulated by the above process, naturally there will be God consciousness everywhere. Wow. Then he says, gambling of all description, even speculative business enterprise, is considered to be degrading. And when gambling is encouraged in the state, there is a complete disappearance of truthfulness. Allowing young boys and girls to remain unmarried more than the above-mentioned ages and licensing animal slaughterhouses of all description should be at once prohibited. The flesh eaters may be allowed to take flesh as mentioned in the scriptures, and not otherwise. Intoxication of all description, even smoking cigarettes, chewing tobacco, or the drinking of tea must be prohibited. That includes coffee. So, I know a person who's a very nice person. He lives here in Sammamish, and then he moved back to India, and I came. He used to chew tobacco a lot, and he learned that in India with his relatives. They also were chewing tobacco. And then he stopped at one point, understanding it's not a good thing to do. But it was too late. And so, fast forward another 10, 15 years, he got a severe type of cancer that destroyed his whole jaw on one side of his face. And they had to cut it out. The whole thing was cancerous before it spread all over his body, especially to his heart and his brain. And then they had to reconstruct it by taking bones from his leg. Right. And then, but that's not all. He had to go through a whole bunch of operations. And finally, they also said that he had to have chemotherapy to be sure that it doesn't spread, even though he got a new jaw. But, I mean, it's not the same as the real jaw that he had, right? So he's always going to be handicapped. So this is by chewing tobacco. Any of you ever chewed tobacco? Did you chew tobacco? No, did you chew tobacco? Did you chew? No. I'm glad you never did. Any of the ladies chew tobacco? No. Don't do it. Right? It's worse than smoking cigarettes. It's worse than that. Right? So here we see, all kinds of things like I mean, they sell chewing tobacco in the Safeway. You can buy it in any store in the United States, and obviously it's selling because they stock it. There are people chewing tobacco, and they like it. Right? It's horrible, but they like it. Right? And of course, cigarettes. They have, whenever you come to the counter where they calculate how much you owe and you have to pay, they have, chewing tobacco there, they have cigarettes there, they have nonsense magazines there, they have junk candies there, they have junk sodas there. All junk stuff is right there. And then people buy those things. It's very interesting how they buy the magazines, because the magazines are all stupid and full of, all nonsense. So they usually quickly grab it and then turn it down like this. I don't know, have you ever seen that? They quickly turn it down so nobody sees the cover where there's all this, ridiculous stuff on, And then they put something on top of it so you can't see what's on the back also. So they know it's nonsense, but they like to read nonsense. And it's been going on for like 30 years now. So that means that people are buying those magazines. You ever see those magazines? Yeah, it's all nonsense, all rubbish, innuendos and things that, this person was seen with that man's wife and they were doing this and that, all nonsense things. So we see how low society is becoming in the United States. It's very, very, it's a downward spiral. Okay, so then Prabhupada continues. He says, 117:39. So I just read 117:38. So now next verse, 117:39. The personality of Kali asked for something more, and because of his begging, the king, Parikshit, gave him permission to live where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, meaning lying and cheating, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Enmity means hatred. So, purport. Although Maharaj Parikshit gave Kali permission to live in 4 places, it was very difficult for Kali to find the places, because during the reign of Maharaj Parikshit, there were no such places in the kingdom. And he was talking about the whole earth. His kingdom was the whole earth. So he was a good leader. He did not have bars. He didn't have gambling. He didn't have prostitution. He didn't allow it. He didn't have meat eating. Right. So Kali couldn't find any place. Those were the 4 places he could, do his work of corrupting people, but there were no places like that. So he said, look, give me another place. So Maharaj Parikshit said, okay, well, you can hang out where there is gold being hidden, right? In other words, where the black business is going on, So they don't pay their taxes. They do everything under the table, and they amass a huge fortune, and usually in gold. All right, so then Prabhupada explains, he says, therefore Kali asked the king to give him something practical which could be utilized for his nefarious means mean, nasty, illegal purposes. Maharaj Pariksit thus gave him permission to live in a place where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, there are all the above mentioned four things. That is pride, there is intoxication, there's prostitution, there's meat eating. And over and above them, there is enmity. There's also hatred due to jealousy. Right? So the personality of Kali became gold standardized. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, gold encourages falsity, meaning cheating, lying, intoxication, prostitution, envy, and enmity, meaning like hatred. Even a gold standard exchange and currency is bad. Gold standard currency is based on falsehood because the currency is not on par with the reserve gold. So the United States was on the gold standard for a long time. They have what's called Fort Knox. I think it's in Tennessee, and they were hoarding their gold there, under military protection. And then Nixon, in the 1970s, decided to eliminate the gold standard because it was very clear that they were printing way more money than there was gold to back it up. So instead of having a gold standard, he said, now we have fiat money. What's fiat money? It's not a car from Italy. Fiat money means it's the money that's the standard itself, or the printed money. It all depends on how much faith you have in the government of the United States, how much faith you have in the army, the military of the state, and so forth. Well, now all that is beginning to disintegrate. Just 2 or 3 days ago, there was an article how the United States Army is falling apart right now. What do you expect? They teach them critical race theory in the Army, that America is an evil country. If you teach that to your soldiers, you think they want to join and risk their life to protect this country? If you tell them, this country is an evil country. You see how stupid people are? The government is? And then they teach gender neutrality in the Army. And then they were forcing the soldiers to take these COVID shots, and many of them refused to do it, and they were thrown out of the Army. So now it's saying that they're not recruiting like they did before. Nobody wants to join. No, very few people now want to join the Army, and they don't have enough soldiers and sailors and airmen to, use all their weapons that they have. So that's a very dangerous thing that's happening. What do you expect? You teach people that your country is evil. Why would they risk their life then? See? Okay. And then you teach them all these other things also, such as, Bush especially was using the Army not to fight, but to establish democracy in places like Afghanistan. That's never had democracy. You see how stupid they are. They're not going to establish democracy in Afghanistan. It's always been a dictatorship, and other places. So they were using the Army to democratize countries. I mean, that's not the purpose of the Army, to democratize the country. The purpose of the Army is to blow things up and kill people into submission. Then the politicians, if they want to go there and try and establish democracy, okay, but you don't use the Army to do that. The Army is supposed to fight and kill and blow things up, So, therefore, things got really confused. And then also, the United States fought 2 or 3 wars in which they didn't want to win the war. Previously, they always wanted to win a war, so they used all their might to win the war. Then they stopped doing that, and they started having wars that were meant more to kill, like American soldiers, like in the Vietnam War. The strategy was to get as many blacks and low-class whites into the army, put them on the front lines without a lot of training, so they would get killed. Why was that? Because there was a risk of revolution taking place in the 1960s in the United States because of the hippies, the hippie culture. So to diminish the number of hippies, they started this war with Vietnam, and they tried to get all these young people. Like I know they tried to get me also. Anybody who graduated college, they had to immediately go into the army, unless you had valid reasons why they didn't want you. Right. So anyway, a lot of people went into the army. The ones that refused to go, I remember the day I went for my medical, there were a whole bunch of people that were refusing to go to the doctors. They were saying, we're communists, we don't believe in this. They put them in jail. They put those guys in jail. And then, anyway, you see, it was very chaotic. And the war, the government, I mean, look, if we defeated Germany, if we defeated Japan, do you don't think we could have defeated Korea, North Korea, and China at that time? I mean, we had all those weapons, and especially nuclear bombs, but they didn't use them. They didn't use anything. They just sent basically untrained young kids to fight. So they lost several wars like that. And then, so that's very discouraging for, the soldiers, because they know they're not using all their means to win the war. And then a lot of young kids are getting killed. Okay, so Kali gets the right to live wherever there's gold. And gold standard exchange and currency is bad. Gold standard, that means you hoarding gold to back up the paper money that you have. But that just causes cheating, because they will always print more paper money than they have gold. So then Nixon stopped that. He said, well, you just have to have faith in the money itself, the paper money. So Prabhupada explains, even a gold standard exchange and currency is bad. Gold standard currency is based on falsehood, because the currency is not on a par with the reserved gold. The basic principle is falsity or cheating, because currency notes are issued in value beyond that of the actual reserved gold. This artificial inflation of currency by the authorities encourages prostitution of the state economy. The price of commodities become artificially inflated because of bad money or artificial currency notes. Bad money drives away good money. Instead of paper currency, actual gold coins should be used for exchange. And this will stop prostitution of gold. Gold ornaments for women may be allowed by control, not by quality, but by quantity. This will discourage lust, envy, and enmity. When there is actual gold currency in the form of coins, the influence of gold in producing falsity, prostitution, etc. will automatically cease. There will be no need of an anti-corruption ministry for another term of prostitution and falsity of purpose. Okay, now what does this mean exactly? Well, we're seeing what it means today. As soon as Biden took office, the supply chain didn't collapse, but it became very, let's say, unpredictable. And then all of a sudden, prices went up, and they're still very high for gasoline, which is everybody's buying gasoline all the time, for food, and for products. Like I know for our food truck, we have what's called a Cummins electronic generator. 5 years ago, I bought it for $4,500. Today, you have to spend $10,000 to get the same thing. It doubled, more than doubled. In hay now, we were paying $12, maximum $15 a bale of hay. Now, they're selling the bale of hay $36. There are many dairies going bankrupt now because they can't afford to feed their cows, especially if they don't have their own land to grow hay. Fortunately, thank God, we are growing our own hay now. You know, we started this year growing our own hay, and it's enough to feed all our cows, even though our herd is growing, until the next harvest. In fact, we harvested twice this year. But there are farmers, they don't grow their own hay, they have to buy it, right? And a lot of them are going to go bankrupt because they can't afford, besides the price of gasoline, the price of hay, the price of other commodities, feed for their cows, and the price of, getting a repair of a tractor costs a huge amount of money now, repairing tractors and so forth. And the price of tractors, new tractors, have gone up significantly, and other equipment. So we see, why is that happening? Well, the explanation is here. Prabhupada says, the price of commodities, he says, the basic principle is falsity, because currency notes are issued in value beyond that of the actual reserve gold. Well, there's no reserve gold anymore. There's just the money itself, the paper money. But what they're doing is, in order for the government to continue, they keep printing more and more money. Now, you and I, if I print $1 and use it to buy something, I would be put in jail. If you do it, you'll be put in jail right away. They're very adamant about it, you know. And then countries like Russia and North Korea, they print American dollars. They do, and they get away with it to a certain degree, right? But only the government is allowed to print money, and they're allowed to print as much money as they want. So the more they print money, the more prices go up, and the more there's this type of falsity. You can't buy as much now with $1 than you could 3 years ago, because they've printed too much money. They put too much money in circulation. Right? Okay, so the price of commodities become artificially inflated because of bad money or artificial currency notes. Bad money drives away good money. Instead of paper currency, actual gold coins should be used for exchange, and this will stop prostitution of gold. Okay, so these are some recommendations by Srila Prabhupada how the society could become purified. Okay, so then the next verse, 11740, says, thus the personality Kali, by the directions of Maharaj Parikshit, the son of Uttara, was allowed to live in those 5 places. In the purport, thus the age of Kali began with gold standardization, and therefore falsity, intoxication, animal slaughter, and prostitution are rampant all over the world, and the saner section is eager to drive out corruption. The counteracting process is suggested above, and everyone can take advantage of this suggestion. (11741). Therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, religionists, public leaders, brahmanas, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the 4 above-mentioned irreligious principles: pride, and intoxication, and meat eating, and illicit sex. the Brahmanas are the religious purport. The Brahmanas are the religious preceptors for all other castes. In other words, they're like the teachers. And the sannyasis are the spiritual masters for all the castes and orders of society. So also are the king and the public leaders who are responsible for material welfare of all people. The progressive religionists and those who are responsible human beings, or those who do not want to spoil their valuable human lives, should refrain from all the principles of irreligiosity, especially illicit connection with women. If a Brahmana is not truthful, all his claims as a Brahmana at once become null and void. If a sannyasi is illicitly connected with women, all his claims as a sannyasi at once become false. Similarly, if the king and the public leader are unnecessarily proud or habituated to drinking and smoking, certainly they become disqualified to discharge public welfare activities. Truthfulness is the basic principle for all religions. The four leaders of human society, namely the sannyasis, the brahmanas, the king, and the public leader, must be tested crucially by their character and qualification. Well, if they had done that with Trump, he would have failed. He's a big meat eater. Of course, he has some things going for him. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, but he loves to eat burgers. See? So, and he loves to play around with women. So he would be disqualified as a leader. Now, Bhakta Joe, he's a little more subtle. He's had several wives, but he usually sticks to one wife, and I don't know if he drinks and eats meat. I'm sure he eats meat. I don't know if he drinks, but his weakness is he loves the bakshish. He is Mr. Bakshish personified. From the Ukrainians, from the Chinese, from anybody that gives him a bakshish, he takes care of them. So that's his weakness. Right? So all these people would be nullified if people would consider their morality and their habits. They wouldn't allow people like that to be elected. But nowadays, people are more interested in, who's going to give me more, the Democrats or the Republicans, right? So, therefore, whoever gives them more, that's who they vote for. It's the same thing in India also. Is that right? Yeah. In fact, it's amazing that Modi got elected. The Congress was guaranteeing you don't have to work, we'll pay you, right? They were offering them money. The poor people wouldn't have to work. They would give them free money to live. It's amazing that he won. Anyway, all right. So now 1742 says, thereafter the king reestablished the lost legs of the personality of religion, the bull. So 3 legs of the bull had been cut and broken by the personality Kali. And the last leg, truthfulness, he was working on that also, to break it. That's when King Parikshit stopped him and threatened to kill him. And then Kali surrendered to him. So if someone surrenders to you, you're not allowed to kill them, according to Vedic tradition. So then Kali negotiated with Maharaj Parikshit, and Maharaj Parikshit cheated him in the sense that he said, well, you can live wherever there's prostitution, meat eating, gambling, and so forth. So he made sure there were no places like that in his kingdom by spending massive amount of money, gold, to promote Sankirtan Yagya. And Kali, after looking around, couldn't find any place where there was intoxication, prostitution, and so forth. So he comes back and says, look, you outsmarted me. He said, you got to give me some other place. He said, okay, well, if you can find any place where people are hiding gold, like the Marwaris and people like that, right? That they always do black business, right? They always have huge amounts of money under the bed in their house or something, right? Then he said, then you can live there and you can do your work there. So that gave Kali a chance, and eventually Kali succeeded. So hoarding gold is a very bad thing. Also, hoarding money, having more money than you actually need, is not a good thing. That extra money should all be used in the service of Krishna. Then you don't have any karmic reaction. Okay, so now he's saying truthfulness is the basic principle for all religions. The four leaders of the human society, namely the sannyasis, the brahmanas, the king, and the public leader, must be tested crucially by their character and qualification before one can be accepted as a spiritual or material master of society. He must be tested by the above-mentioned criteria of character. That means no intoxication, no philandering, no meat eating, no gambling. Such public leaders may be less qualified in academic qualifications, but it is necessary primarily that they be free from the contamination of the four disqualifications, namely gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter. So he's saying, look, we don't really care if they're less academically. What we really care about is their morality and their qualities. If they have Vaishnava qualities, even though they're not some PhD or whatever, that's okay. That's okay, because at least you can trust them. They're not going to do anything illegal. They're not going to do anything that is prohibited. Okay, so thereafter King reestablished the lost legs of the personality of religion, the bull, and by encouraging activities, he sufficiently improved the condition of the earth. Purport. By designating particular places for the personality of Kali, Maharaj Parikshit practically cheated Kali. In the presence of Kali, Dharma in the shape of a bull, and the earth, meaning the cow, in the shape of a cow, he could actually estimate the general condition of his kingdom. And therefore, he at once took proper steps to reestablish the legs of the bull, namely austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. Truthfulness was still somewhat present. That fourth leg was still not broken. And for the general benefit of the people of the world, he saw that the gold stock might be employed for stabilization. Gold is certainly a generator of falsity, intoxication, prostitution, enmity, and violence. But under the guidance of a proper king or public leader, or a brahmana or a sannyasi, the same gold can be properly utilized to reestablish the lost legs of the bull, the personality of religion. In other words, if you collect all the excess gold and use it for spreading Harinam Sankirtan and Krishna consciousness, then gold is a good thing. It all depends on how you use something. If you use it in Krishna's service, then it can become purified. If you use it for selfish reasons, then it's contaminating. Maharaj Parikshit, therefore, like his grandfather Arjuna, collected all the illicit gold kept for the propensities of Kali and employed it in the Sankirtan Yajna, as per instruction of the Srimad Bhagavatam. As we have suggested before, one's accumulated wealth may be divided into three parts for distribution, namely 50% for the service of the Lord, 25% for the family members, and 25% for personal necessities. Spending 50% for the service of the Lord or for propagation of spiritual knowledge in society by way of the Sankirtan Yajna is the maximum display of human mercy. People of the world are generally in darkness regarding spiritual knowledge, especially in regard to the devotional service of the Lord, and therefore, to propagate the systematic transcendental knowledge of devotional service is the greatest mercy that one can show in this world. When everyone is taught to sacrifice 50% of his accumulated gold for the Lord's service, certainly austerity, cleanliness, and mercy automatically ensue, in other words, automatically follow. And thus, the lost three legs of the personality of religion are automatically established when there is sufficient austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Naturally, Mother Earth is completely satisfied, and there is very little chance for Kali to infiltrate the structure of human society. Whoa, Prabhupada is really explaining things so nicely here. Okay, so it's getting a little late. And we'll continue tomorrow. Actually, the purpose is how to purify society and establish Krishna consciousness in the modern world. Are there any questions? So today we're going to send out the summary of what we covered in the last 3 days, because it's a big subject, it's the false ego. So we'll send that out today so everyone can review it. Any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes.
One question
So
I
now,
have
don't
is,
be afraid by 50%. If you can't do it now, okay, but you should strive for it. Okay? It shouldn't be 0%, that's for sure.
Maharaj, we were taught after 400,000 years after Kalki comes, Krishna comes as a form of Kalki and re-establishes Dharma. And then again we are emphasizing to establish the same Dharma, but I would like to understand your opinion
What do you mean,
versus
same Dharma? What are you talking about?
establishing the religion, the three legs ourselves. But we know it's destined by Kalki to come and establish that. So for somebody who thinks
so
like
you're
this,
basically saying, well, since it's going to be like that, why waste our time trying to reestablish Krishna consciousness? Is that your point?
there is a question typically
Well, there's something you're
pop
missing.
up.
What you're missing is that 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya claimed that a golden age of 10,000 years has started. And during this golden age, people can easily get out of the cycle of birth and death, go back to Godhead, by engaging in the Sankirtan movement. So we have a 10,000 year window here, and so far, over 500 years of that 10,000 have gone.
Okay.
All right.
So
that puts a pin into your big balloon here. You have another 9,500 years to help people get out of Kali Yuga, go back to Godhead.
Okay, that's good to know, Maharaj. Otherwise, this piece of the knowledge stuck to the mind, and it's good to know this, which I didn't come across
your
before.
point was, look, since Kalki is going to come and wipe out everyone, why should we even try and save anyone? No, that doesn't make sense. Haribol.
Haribol.
Any other questions? See, that's why you should come to class, because you can ask a question like this and eliminate a gigantic doubt that you have in your mind. Otherwise, you're going to keep that doubt in your mind. You're not going to make any effort to be Krishna conscious. You see how easy it is to misinterpret things.
That's one more question. The attraction to the gold, is it a induced concept, Maharaj? I mean, I still don't understand why people get attracted to gold.
Well, it's like attraction a woman has for a man, or a man has for a woman. You see something attractive. So you see gold, especially when it's pure gold, is very attractive. It's shiny, and it can buy a lot of things. If you get a gold brick, I don't know, why don't you look at how much does a gold brick cost now? It runs into the thousands of dollars, right? So one gold brick like this, if you own one, that represents thousands and thousands of dollars, things that you could buy with it.
Is the money associated with the gold, that's why it makes it attractive for now?
Not only that, it's the fact that the gold value can increase over time. Whenever there's economic downturn, the gold value increases. And your purchasing power of your money decreases. The purchasing power of gold increases. So many people buy gold as a safeguard in case of economic downturn. Their whole portfolio is not gold, but let's say 10 or 20% of their portfolio is gold, just as in order to balance off any loss due to paper money or bitcoins. You see how bitcoins have crashed, right? Well, money also can crash. If they overprint too much money, the value of the money goes down. Your purchasing ability with the dollar goes down. Whereas before, with $1 you could buy 10 things. Now, because they overprinted, you can only buy 5 things. The same dollar can only buy 5 things now, whereas before it could buy 10 things. Okay, what is it? How much is a
1 kilogram costs $59,410.
say 1 kilogram? That's not very heavy, right? Huh? 32 ounces is like 2 pounds.
Yeah, just about 1 kilogram.
Yeah, it's, a kilogram might be a little bit more, but yeah. So, one little brick like that of gold is worth, $60,000. That's what makes it attractive. If you could just, even if, for some people, if they could just steal 1 brick of gold, that would solve most of their problems. Imagine if you stole a whole bunch of them. That's why they're willing to risk their lives to steal gold, one way or the other. And there are people who, they have gold in their portfolio. There's 2 ways of having it. One is the people you buy it from keep it for you. The other way is you can get it delivered to your house. But that's extremely dangerous, because if anybody finds out that you have it in your house, they'll come and kill you and take it. So usually people, they leave it with the company that they bought it from, or they put it into a bank vault, right? Because it's too dangerous having it in your house. Let's say you have 5 bricks of gold, that means, it's like $300,000. So, anybody who knows that you have that in your house, they'll definitely come and try and take it. So it's very dangerous. It's better to be poor, Prabhu. Nobody bothers you if you're poor. They're not interested in you. Yeah.
So, Maharaj, one potential argument that if we have to give 50%, then we have to earn a lot more.
No, there's 2 ways of giving 50%. Diminishing your needs or increasing your needs, right? So the easiest way is to diminish your needs. Then you can give 50%. If you have to increase your means to give 50%, you get more entangled. If you diminish your needs, you get less entangled. So, these are decisions that you have to make. You can't make it unilaterally. You have to have your wife agree. Right? So you voluntarily, downsize your needs. And that's the smartest thing to do. Right? Just like I knew this one man, so when there was a little bit of an economic downturn, a lot of people were losing money on the stock market. So I asked him, how you doing? He said, oh, I'm okay. I said, did you lose money on the stock market? He said, no. I said, really? He said, no, I don't have stocks. He said, I've never bought any stocks in my life. And I always pay cash for whatever I have, whether it's a car or a house. And I don't have any debts. So, the whole United States can collapse. I'll still be okay. So, why? Because he never buys anything on credit. He doesn't have a credit card. He doesn't have any debts because he paid everything off. And he lives very simply with his wife. His kids are all married, so he doesn't have to worry about them. So, although a lot of people got hurt, his kids got hurt. They had investments here. They lost their house, this thing, that thing, because they were, had so many debts and they couldn't pay them. Right? So yeah, the safer thing is downsizing. Then you don't have to worry. If you don't have any stocks, you don't have to worry about the stock market going down. Haribol. Actually, Vijayanath could give us a good example of making the wrong decision. Not that he did, but his son made some big mistakes. You can ask him about that. He'll explain it to you. And he tried to warn him, but the son didn't listen to him. And he lost everything. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Many kids who are grown up now, they move back in their parents' home because they can't afford to pay money for an apartment or a house. There are a lot of kids living in the basement now in their parents' home.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Bandho Mui Savadana Ma Te Jahara Prasade Pai E Baba Toriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bai Ye Baba Toriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Ja Hoite
Krishna Prapti Hoya
Padma Vakya Chite Te Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitte Goriya Aikya
Arana Koriyo Mane Asha
Arana Goriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Utama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttamagati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Savasa
Chakshudan Dilo Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Sudana Dila Janme Janme Prabhu Se
Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito
Divya Gyani De Prakashito
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasa Jate
Prema Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasa Jate
Vidigai Jahara Charito
Vidigai Janara Charito
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
Lokanath Lokera Jivana
Lokanath Lokera Jivana
Aha Prabhu Koro Doya Dehe More Pada Chaya
Prabhu Kora Doya Deya More Padashaya
Epikas Kushik Tribhuvana Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Ma Vishnudaya Krishna Vesaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dishatarine
Namaste Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dishatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajika Chasta Tarasatara Shri Shimad Histavan Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridasa Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Ganga Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Samvita Bhaktivinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanand all glories to the simple Lord, all glories to the simple Lord, all glories to the simple Lord, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Swadhyabhakti. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vanicharani Visesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatani. Haripur. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to this lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is perfection, fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. Oh, Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take